I'm Jerome Kittrell, past president of East Mississippi Realtors.
And I'm Taylor Chapman. I am a local mortgage loan officer.
We want to thank you for joining us today. We're going to do our very best to provide you with some worthwhile information. So, you're interested in buying a house, and probably your first home. Congratulations. It is indeed an exciting experience, an exciting time in your life. So what's the first thing you should do? Your very first step is to go to the bank and get pre-qualified for a loan, so you know what price range house to look for. The bank loan officer will walk you through the process and talk to you about your monthly payment to make sure you understand it and are comfortable with it. He or she will talk to you about your principal and interest, but also property taxes and homeowners insurance. And also, if you find a house that you like and decide to make an offer, the seller is probably going to require that you've been pre-qualified to make sure that you can close on the deal. And while we're talking about banks, I strongly recommend you work with a local banker. The local banker knows the other local parties involved, the realtor, the appraiser, the closing attorney, and the communication will flow so well. There's also what I call the accountability factor. How accountable do you think someone's going to be? How responsive do you think someone's going to be if they're just a voice on the phone that you never meet, as opposed to sitting down across the desk from the local banker, getting to know the local banker, them getting to know you and finding out what you want or need in a house. Once you've done that, once you've gotten pre-qualified by the local bank, then you're ready to begin working with a realtor of your choosing. I emphasize of your choosing because you can work with any realtor, and that realtor can show you any house on the market. It does not matter who signs in that front yard. That person works with the seller, and you certainly can work with them, but you can work with your own agent that will look out for your interest. As we begin working with you as your realtor, we become your agent in every sense of the word, and we take on some fiduciary responsibilities like loyalty, that is to protect and promote your interest, obedience to your instructions, and confidentiality of your information, certainly your financial information, but other information like your motivation for buying. As we begin working with you, we're going to ask you some questions. How many bedrooms do you need? How many baths? Do you want to live in the city or the county? Do you want some acreage or a small yard? Is school district important to you? Once we've gotten your criteria, we'll send you listings that match up to that criteria in your price range. Then we'll go out and start looking at houses. As we find houses that you like, we'll help you determine pricing. How do we do that? How do we know how to price a house? In much the same way that an appraiser does, we will look at values in that specific neighborhood on a square foot basis. Every neighborhood has its own unique set of values, and we'll help you negotiate the process. We're going to insist on a written contract that sets out the duties, rights, and responsibilities of you and the seller. And we're going to suggest some things to you, such as have a home inspection done and make your offer contingent on a home inspection being satisfactory to you. If the contract is drawn properly and that home inspection scares you, you can walk away and get your earnest money back or good faith money back. The home inspector will look at everything about that house, by the way, the roof to the foundation, the heating and air systems, the plumbing, electrical, everything. Or you can go back to the seller and say, I love the house, and if you'll make the repairs indicated by this report, we can move forward. We'll probably suggest to you that you ask the seller to have a termite inspection done also to show that the house is termite free. If termites are found, then the seller would have to get rid of the termites, eliminate them, and place the house under bond. We'll have discussion with you about whether the seller should pay your closing cost. Closing costs are basically bank charges, and we can ask that the seller absorb those on your behalf. These are some of the ways we'll give you guidance, we'll protect and promote your interest. I want to thank you for your attention, and now I'm going to turn it over to Taylor, who's going to talk to you about the bank process. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome. Like we mentioned earlier, I am a local mortgage loan officer, and each and every client that I come in contact with is different, but they all have the same question when they first come to me, and that is, where do I start? I'm interested in buying a house, but I have no idea what I'm doing. So that is what we're trying to do today, is just give you a little advice on how the process works. Jerome explained that your first step is to go to a banker, and that is correct. We want you to know your boundaries right off the get-go. You do not want to go fall in love with a house that's out of your means or a payment that you really don't want coming due every 30 days. So you will reach out to what we hope is a local lender for the accountability factor. You will set an appointment, or they take information over the phone. We do a lot of online applications, whatever is specific to your needs at that time. You will make application with that mortgage loan officer, and they will obtain a credit report. This is a hard inquiry. We do not do soft pulls for a mortgage loan. It's the biggest purchase of your life, so we have to know all the factors. Most lenders require a minimum 600 credit score, but that is different for each institution. Some have 640, 660. So you may want to ask, what is that minimum credit score before you have the hard inquiry pulled? Another tip is not to have every lender in town pulling your credit. That will eventually affect your credit score. If you do get pre-approved from one bank and you want to check rates at another bank, you can call and say, I have a 680 credit score, I would like an FHA loan for $200,000, and they should be able to tell you what rate and price they can offer you. That way you can compare without jeopardizing your pre-approval that you first started with. There are many different types of loans, so when you do call that loan officer, it's going to be hard for them to tell you right off the bat what loan is good for you until they see the whole picture. There's VA loans for veterans, USDA loans for rural counties. There's FHA loans for minimum down payment and lesser credit scores. There's conventional loans for your more experienced buyers or someone that has a significant down payment. One thing to expect when you're making application is to be able to talk about where you've lived for the last 2 years, where you've worked for the last 2 years, and be able to provide 2 months of bank statements. Let's talk about employment for a minute. Sometimes I have first-time home buyers that just graduated college, and they've signed on to be a teacher, but they don't have a prior work history. Schooling can be your previous history as long as we document that with a diploma or transcripts. If you're starting an hourly position, you need to try to make sure that you can provide to us that you work a 40-hour work week. My self-employed clients, you do have to be in the same line of work with 2 years of tax returns. So if you just started your business in January, more than likely you are going to need to wait until you have a history of how much money you're making as a self-employed entrepreneur. Commissioned employees are the same way. If you have a base salary and you're working commission, you are going to need to show a history because some months may be better than others. Regarding assets, you don't always have to have a lot of money in the bank to buy a house. Luckily for us, there are down payment assistance programs offered right now. There are 100% loans out there right now. It all depends on your criteria. So that's why it's so important for you to explain the full situation to your banker. Don't leave anything out, because by the end of this process, we're going to know everything about you anyway. Okay, so once you are pre-approved with your bank, you now get to go find your house, because we have narrowed it down to you may be pre-approved for $250,000, but you may prefer a house note that puts you in the $110,000 price range. Now you can go to your realtor and say, I'm working with such and such bank. They have pre-approved me for this amount with this loan type. That is very important. And they are willing to send me a pre-approval letter once we find a home to make an offer on. The agent will then start showing you houses. They will narrow it down to what is specific to your needs. We strongly recommend that you use a real estate agent. It makes everybody's job easier because the bank cannot legally represent you in your offer. We don't know if that's what you should be paying for that home. We don't know if the seller has enough room to pay your closing cost. So even if it's a for sale by owner, you can still have legal representation, and we hope that you do that. In this area, we all know each other. We're all very familiar with our work ethic, and we trust each other. So if I send a pre-approval letter, that realtor knows we are good to go and what they need to look for that client. Once you find the home that you want, a sales contract is secured, and that's when you get back with your lender. They will lock a rate in for you. They will start the loan process. So really, until you find that house, the lender's just kind of waiting on you. That pre-approval is good for 4 months. So you have some time to find the house that's good for you. Once the appraisal comes back, the file goes into underwriting. Underwriting is the fear that everyone hears, oh, how are we going to make it through underwriting? Underwriting is not bad if you do the due diligence on the front end. If you explain everything and provide all the details to your mortgage banker, then underwriting should be a breeze for you. And that is the goal that we hope. We hope this is a good experience from start to finish. After final loan approval, your file goes to closing. Closing is when we reach out to a local attorney, and that's when they become involved. They check the title on the property. They make sure that there are no existing liens or judgments or anything that could hinder you having full ownership of that home. The closing day is the happy day. That's when we go and sit around the table, the sellers come, you sign a big stack of papers, and you normally get keys. Your realtor is there to represent you to make sure everything goes as it should. The attorney is there to make sure it is a legal transaction. So after you're finished signing, you are now Meridian's newest homeowner.
Congratulations. Now that we've gotten through the process, let's talk about questions that come up from time to time. People ask us as realtors if we can show a for sale by owner. And the answer is most of the time, yes, we can. We'll contact that owner and say, we have a pre-approved, willing, able buyer in your price range that would love to see your house. May we come and show it? Most of the time they will say, yes, thank you very much. A question we get every day is, what about a rent-to-own house? My answer is run far away fast. If you rent to own a refrigerator or a television and you pay it off in a couple of years, then it's yours. You actually own it. But in a house, it's usually a 15 to a 20-year payout, and you may never own that house because the owner dies or moves or divorces or anything can happen. And then you really didn't rent to own, you really rented to rent. So don't do rent to owns. Taylor, I know you come up with questions from time to time.
Yes, just one that pops up is once your lender has that credit report, they do monitor your credit until the closing date. So any new inquiry where you have went to Lowe's to do 12 months same as cash on that new refrigerator to put in your new house could jeopardize your application. So please do not co-sign with your daughter on her car. Let everything wait until closing date. And then after that, you're good to go.
About how long does the process take from the time that buyer makes application until they're getting the deed and the keys at the closing table? About how long does that take?
Dependent upon the current market, because appraisal turn time, home inspection turn time, but normally you can expect to buy your house between 30 to 45 days. Some lenders, it may take a little longer, just dependent, but that should be your normal time frame.
Okay. Another question that comes up from time to time, when you've closed and the house is yours, can you move in that day? And it kind of depends on the situation. A lot of times, yes, you get the keys, your moving van is packed and ready, and you move in that day. Sometimes a seller is moving out of town or there are other circumstances, and the seller may ask for a day or two to get out of that house. And usually the parties together can work together and solve that situation.
But to add on to that, that is why it's good to have a real estate agent involved, because I have had several independent parties, a buyer and a seller with no representation, and the buyer said, well, I didn't know that they were going to wait 30 days to move out of the house. Well, if we would have discussed that on the front end and had someone that knew that that needed to be discussed and decided on right then, that wouldn't have happened. That problem would not have come up.
Sometimes people will ask what remains with the house, and all that's part of the negotiation process. You can ask that the appliances remain, and even the refrigerator. You can ask that window treatments and curtains remain. So that's all part of the negotiation process, but those are among the kind of things you should be thinking about and asking about.
Another question that comes up when we're really promoting local lenders, well, my bank is with this credit union. It's not with that mortgage lender. That is okay. You do not have to have a checking or savings account with the bank that is going to do your mortgage. We help service all the time. Now, yes, we would love it if you moved to that institution, but you do not have to.
We want to thank you again for spending this time with us. We hope we've explained the process to your satisfaction. We wish you all the best in your search for your perfect home. Thanks again.
Yes, thank you.